Alright, so this video will be about the past perfect continuous. It will be best if you've already watched my video about the present perfect continuous because the two are very similar to each other. But a lot of the things we'll just talk about again. So let's look at an example of what the past perfect continuous looks like. So I had been sleeping for 3 hours when they called and woke me up. Past perfect continuous part is here, had been sleeping. And this will always be the form. You'll have had plus been plus the ing form of whatever your verb is. Right, so meaning, what does it mean? This is the most interesting question. So, as with the present perfect continuous, the interesting question is, what's the difference between the past perfect continuous and the past perfect just by itself? So we could have said, in this one, we could have just said, I had slept for 3 hours when you called and woke me up. And let's change this actually. Let's change this to 8 and this to 8. So this would be, we'll see why in a second. This would be one way to say it. The other way, you can also say the same thing here. So our question is, what is the difference between these two things? So what did we say when we talked about the present perfect continuous? What's the difference? When we use the continuous and perfect together, it means two things that the perfect alone doesn't mean. Or it's not that it can't mean it, but we just don't have that meaning inside. If you you might have heard this analogy from some of my other videos, but the way tenses work is we have simple tense bases, which are past, present, and past simple. I mean, we have bases of past simple and present simple, and on these bases, you can add other meanings. So if we just have the perfect, past perfect alone, we just have a past base and we have a perfect meaning on top of that. I mean, if we add the continuous, then we have both those meanings on there. And so when we add this, we add the continuous to our construction. The meanings that we add are two meanings. These two things. We add two meanings when we include the continuous, in other words. All right. So those two meanings are, one, that the verb happens up to that moment, and two, that the verb hasn't stopped happening from the time that it started relative to our result, and if you've seen my videos about the perfect, you should have an understanding of what I mean by result. Alright, so let's look at some examples of this, and then let's look at this afterwards we'll look at this on a timeline. So we changed a couple of things. One thing we changed is so that they weren't woken up. So the person just slept out for 8 hours when the person called. Let's imagine that their phone was on silent and they weren't woken up. Let's just do that for both cases here. All right, and let's look at this difference. Okay, so if we just have the past, let's start with the past perfect continuous. If we have the past perfect continuous, and we say this, that would mean that they were asleep. I'm just doing 1 and 2 here. Okay, so they were asleep when the person called, which is our defined moment, by the way, which is a concept you want to remember from some other videos or some things you might have read on the site. So asleep when the person called because it was happening at the moment. We can have it at or up to that moment. It can end right at that moment also. But right now it's not ending. They're sleeping beyond that. So, and the verb, so the person hadn't woken up. During the night. They just fell asleep and they stayed asleep until that defined moment, which was when the person called. Now, and people can start asking really irrelevant questions here. It doesn't matter if you woke up for 2 seconds, Okay, the point is if it is what would be considered continual sleep. And I think for most people there are moments when you wake up, but unless you woke up for 15 minutes or so, then you consider yourself to have slept continually. All right, so this is the case with the past continuous. Now let's see the difference when we look at the case of the just the past perfect by itself. Okay, remember this is the difference that we're interested in. What's the difference in the meaning between these two situations? So if we say this, then the person doesn't have to be asleep. At that moment. In that case, it's possible that they just, for example, they woke up, were awake for 30 minutes or something. Person called at the 15-minute mark of that 30 minutes, and then 15 minutes later went back to sleep, and the result continued developing. Which is why there's the perfect at all. Now, it isn't the only reason to be the perfect at all. You would still use the perfect even if you hadn't gone to sleep, to show that one thing happened before the other. But anyway, it would be another reason to use the perfect if it continued beyond. All right, I know this is very complex stuff. It'll be easier to understand if you understand everything that we've said about all the other tenses before. So you kind of need that. All right, the other thing that it will mean here is that that's different is this: it could have stopped. All right, so for example, he might have slept for 2 hours. You can think of the past perfect continuous. This is a sound sleeper, and this is like an insomniac. I guess that helps you. But the reason is that he slept for 2 hours, awake for 2 hours, and then slept maybe for 6 more hours. And then he might have been asleep when the person called, or maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was this scenario right here, and he was going to sleep some more, or he wasn't going to sleep some more. Like we said, it can be both. All right, so this is possible. If we use the perfect continuous here, that is not possible. Remember, we said they hadn't woken up in the night. Now, this is the difference. So if we look at this on a timeline, time is going from left to right. The big horizontal up and down line here is going to be the present moment, the moment that the thing is being spoken of. And we're going to have some different possibilities. Now, if it's the past perfect continuous in the sentence that we had, we're going to have the sleep start, and it doesn't stop until we get to this moment here when the person calls, which is our defined moment. Again, that's from some previous videos. That concept is very important. We have to have a defined moment for these kinds of things. Past continuous, past perfect, future continuous, future perfect, past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous, and some other things too. So those are the most important ones to understand. But anyway, this is basically the only possibility for that. If we use the past perfect continuous, only this. All right, now if it's just the past perfect by itself, like we said, there are a lot of other possibilities because we don't have these restrictions. So, like we said, it could be that if we look at this first one here, it could be that they went to sleep, and then let's say they woke up back here. And we had 8 hours up until that moment. If we want to make this complete, we can just put it all in one thing. So let's say they slept for a couple of hours. They woke up. They slept for 6 hours more. And then they woke up again, and then the person called. Now, all these are possible from this one statement. I had slept for 8 hours when you called. Now, all of this is possible. All these different things are possible because we don't have this continuous meaning added, which restricts the meanings possible. So that's pretty much it. That's the that is what you want to understand about the past perfect continuous. The interesting difference is between when we have to use the or when we have to, but the interesting difference is the difference in meaning when we use the continuous together with the perfect to make the perfect continuous, and that is that it restricts the possible meaning, so it limits. There's a much less possible situations. It clearer communicates exactly what happened. It tells you that the thing was happening at the moment that we're talking about. It's going to be a past moment, and it also tells you that the verb did not stop from the time that it started. If you have the past perfect just by itself, you don't have those restrictions, you don't have those limits on meaning, and you have a lot of other possibilities. Now, maybe I should say this: it is possible that this same meaning is there. It could be this meaning. You see, it could be this meaning here. It's just that it doesn't have to be. Okay, with the perfect continuous, it has to be this meaning. With the past perfect by itself, all these other meanings are possible. Okay, so thank you very much for watching my video. If you like this video, press the like button, and you can also subscribe to get further content. Or visit my website, rapidenglish.me, where you'll see all of my content. Thanks again.